Welcome everyone. This is our August edition of ARPchives Live, and we're really excited to be here. This is one of the first Wednesdays that it's not thunderstorming, so fingers crossed, because thunderstorms make modems not happy. So we have weather going in our favor, which is absolutely fantastic. I am going to be bringing in Steve McQuarry from California. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Dina.
How you doing? This has been a real long time coming. I cannot tell you. We've had a couple of false starts with all sorts of life things going on, and so it's such a pleasure to finally have you here. You've been such an amazing support for us, and I am really excited by the interesting variety of work that you make and show, and it's such a treat. It's a real treat. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thanks, Dina. It's great to be here.
So just a little intro. Steve has probably one really impressive biography. So you have performed with distinguished artists like the late Dizzy Gillespie, who I was also very privileged to be able to see in concert as well, with the Afro-Cuban All-Stars, actually. Yeah.
Nice.
Claire Fisher, Louis Belson, Red Rodney, another one. Who played with Charlie Parker, Tom Scott, the late John Cage, Laurie Anderson. Such an interesting mix of people, I have to say. People that have played with Herbie Hancock and Jimi Hendrix, Colorado Symphony Orchestra. And you are also the owner of the Mandala Records and SMP Productions. So he's coming here tonight primarily to talk about his newest moniker, which is Synsor, but I am definitely going to be diving in a little deeper than just that. So we'll get you on the spotlight now, and see some beautiful instruments behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what started it all, really.
So these are instruments you've had for a long time, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I started as far as synthesis on the ARP Odyssey. This is my original one. This is number 75, and I started on high school. It was really kind of a weird story. In electronics class, we made a VCO. Teacher said, "Hey, we're going to make a VCO," and I said, "Oh my God, I know what that is." And, he made us diagram it and, get our soldering guns out, get the capacitors and resistors. And a few weeks later, I went into part of the band room. I never really went in. I was playing in the orchestra at the time, cello. I never really went in that room. There were some extra cellos. Then the corner was an ARP Odyssey, the Mach 1, the white face one. And I went, oh my God, it's a synthesizer, and I've been seeing him on albums and Keyboard Magazine, of course, and of course nobody in the neighborhood, all the keyboard players I grew up around, they didn't, they may have played electric piano, organ, but nobody had a synthesizer. So the fact that high school had one was fantastic. But the thing I love that your father did is put the, probably people can see it better on the 2600, is the diagram.
Yeah.
I mean, that just you could see the whole signal flow right there. And I could tell VCO to VCF to EG to, to the amplifier, VCA. I mean, it was just all laid out. I was like, oh my God, I know what this thing does. So I turned it on and it worked. The band teacher came in the room because he could hear me in there, and he goes, hey, does that thing work? I go, yeah, it's working great. And he said, hey, if you want to, you can take it home. We don't know what to do with it. So, I took the Odyssey home, and that was it. I mean, my life was changed ever after. Yeah, and so this is a number 75 from the Pearlman factory.
What's the address on it? It's probably Needham Street address. Does it have the address? Yeah. Very cool.
And it's sort of working every once in a while. Some capacitor resistors. There's a guy here in town who used to be the technician for Jefferson Airplane. He works on it every once in a while, gets it back up and working. Yeah, so it's cool. And that was my first, and the 2600 was my second. And how that came about, a professor at the University of Colorado, Dr. Pritz, started a recording synthesis and sound synthesis and synthesis lab all together at the school. He built 4 studios, bought a bunch of synthesizers. And somebody told him there's a kid in the neighborhood playing synthesizer, playing an ARP. And he called my mother, said, there's a professor on the phone, wants to talk to you. And he invited me to the university, and he said, bring your Odyssey. And I went there and I auditioned on the ARP Odyssey to get in school. So even though I was a piano player, I didn't go to school for piano. I went to school for synthesizer. He started a synthesis program with the recording studio.
So you were part of a pilot program?
Okay. No, it was a 4-year degree system. He had just started. He had got it all laid out, but he's looking for students that were interested in recording and synthesis. And, I'll give the time. It was in the 70s, so the synthesizer was still, this is all pre-MIDI. This is all, this was the first semi-modular, right? Was the 2600, right? So he bought a bunch of those, and he also got a Mode 3. Yeah.
Well, actually, I would say the 2500 was the first in the ARP line. But that was fully modular.
And none of us had seen the 2500. We didn't know anybody had a 2500.
Yeah.
So this was the closest, was the 2600. But I was starting to see these, artists with these, Edgar Winter, Joe Zabino, who had 2. One of my favorite people that's out here in the Bay Area, Patrick Gleason.
Oh yeah.
Who had played with Herbie Hancock, and got in his band playing the ARP 2600. So I was starting to listen to these people at that time because I just kept searching out who had ARPs, who had ARPs, and just started listening until I met the professor, and then him and I started to have the conversation, because before I met him, I didn't have really anybody to talk synthesis to. It was a completely new topic.
Okay, so there weren't chat rooms like there are now. There weren't meetups like there are now, and and it was
pre-internet.
This was state of the art. I mean, that's what's so brilliant. It was state of the art, and the fact that it's still considered cutting edge, not cutting edge, but desirable and interesting is a testament to the beauty of these machines. So let's go back a little bit. It looks like you had a classical training. Am I correct? Or
yeah, that's correct. So my mother was a pianist. She played in the Methodist church and played classical music. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with the piano in the house. And heard my mother play, basically. And the piano was in the house. When I was about probably 5 or whatever, I climbed up there, started fiddling with the keys. My mother said, I think something's going on. Let's get him to a piano class. And so in my elementary school, in the library of all rooms, they had a teacher come and teach piano, and she taught us to read at the same time. So you learn treble and bass clef,
Yeah.
and you learn the piano keys all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I could always read. And then went through the piano. So during that time, grade school, the students that seemed to be advancing, she recommended them to an outside teacher, and I ended up with a teacher who had developed a actual class for children, Dr. Janice Buckner. She actually taught classical music to kids, and she gave 2 recitals a year. You had to memorize lots of Chopin, Bach, and Beethoven, yada yada. And you also went to these big award, I don't want to call them competitions, but you would go and play 20 memorized Bach pieces, things like that. It was really, and very thorough system she put together, right? But the one thing she did do is you would have piano one day, and you had a theory class on another day. So she taught us basic theory. And that was the first time I started composing, because she would, for the recitals, the theory class had to come up with a piece to perform at the recitals. So beyond your piano piece, you had to do a piece with the group from theory class, and they had to perform. So my first piece was called School's Out, and it was written on the handbells. And
School's Out for the
I
summer?
think there was
Not the headbanging schools?
Yeah, there was 8 of us, and we played the handbells. But you had to write this out on the board. She made you write the piece out on the board, and everybody had to get their handbell, and you had to practice it at theory class. So she was really instrumental, really, for getting me started composing because of that theory in the piano and organ. So here was the other thing about her. She also had an electric piano. She had a Wurlitzer, and she had a Conn organ. So if you were doing pretty good on your pieces, you could go over and play the Conn organ and the Wurlitzer electric piano. So that was my introduction to electronic instruments. Yeah.
Interesting.
And for me, at that time, my grandmother bought me a Hammond theater organ with the bass pedals.
Wow.
So, because my grandmother loved organs. So that teacher introduced me to a classical organ teacher. So I had classical piano lessons and I had classical organ lessons with the bass pedals and everything.
You were a busy kid.
I was a busy kid, yeah.
That's great, though. That's great, because I think when you're young, it becomes so ingrained in your muscle memory, so second nature. You're really able to, articulate and express so easily when you learn young. And I think not that one can't learn later. And I can't remember who it was, and it'll come to me later on but I was just reading about how an actress was recently learned how to play piano for a role that she was acting in, and at age 40, and I just could not imagine learning how to play piano at age 40. But there you go. So, but I think you have a definite advantage. So when you went to college, were you interested in composing initially before the synthesizer happened to you?
Yeah.
Or?
Yes. So this was kind of interesting because before I went to University of Colorado, right before I went there with Dr. Pritz, I had got invited to Eastman School of Music for composing and arranging in New York.
Oh.
So this was a little bit of an issue because I got accepted at Eastman for composing and arranging. And then Dr. Pritz wanted me to come to the synthesis program. And it was like, I can't believe this is happening. So the deans of the schools got together and said, look, why don't you take him for a couple years, and then we'll take him back for a couple years, and we'll just have this cross-pollination with him.
So you created your own major in a way.
Yeah, I ended up getting a weird double major, which was kind of unheard of at the time. But
Oh, that's great.
it worked out. But it was just, it was the distance was interesting, but it was just what happened. It was because I thought I was going to have to decide, and they were like, "No, kind of let him do both." We want him for composing and arranging at Eastman, but then the professor wouldn't be there for the synthesis program, so it just worked out. So I kind of got everything at once. I got it all at once. Yeah.
So it looks like, judging from both the lineup in your bio and from some of your past uh, bands, which we'll talk about in a moment, that you have been earning a living pretty much doing composing, playing, writing, performing, creating records. So it sounds like it's been a really, really interesting career. Tell me a little bit about now. Actually, I want to just let the audience know is when I first became aware of Steve, he was actually making some nice comments for live shows like this, and then kind of joining in, and then I checked. We had a conversation about Latin music,
Oh yeah.
and I
Yeah.
happen to be a real lover of Latin music. I just love it on all different flavors. And so you were in a band called Tribu.
Yeah, that's a band I created. Just probably over the last 5 years, I had it. But again, during that time in college, I met a percussion player, a gentleman who played drums, timbales, and a little bit piano, and knew the Afro-Cuban, Puerto Rican style of the jazz and stuff. And we also knew about, of course, being playing with Dizzy, we knew about Chano Pozo and Dizzy, the stuff he had done. So when I met this guy, we were at a gig one night, and he kept looking at my hands. And he said, "You would be great playing Latin piano." And I knew Cal Chater, I knew Santana started it, but I knew some of that music. But I was like, "Yeah, okay." And he said, "Come over to my house, and I'll show you, a montuno, which is that abbreviated rhythmic arpeggio, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And I went over his house, and what he was doing was getting me ready for his band because they were losing their piano player. And
Come over. What are you doing
later,
next month?
yeah, so he was grooming me for the band. But I met a bunch of Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and at that time Brazilian musicians, and I just got put into that scene. And I was this African American guy. I played jazz, R&B, classical music, funk stuff. But and again, I knew a little bit the Latin, but I didn't know the Latin rhythms. I didn't know that. But this guy, he just took me through because he could play piano a little bit. And about the third week, he goes, "I can't play those montunos you're coming up with. So you're good. You got it. So, oh, by the way, come join the band." And that was it. So that's kind of, I got into that music, and I just learned that music. And then there was a gentleman, a trumpet player, who had a horn section, and we had a rhythm section. And they played a lot of Latin music, but they lost the rhythm section, and we didn't have any horn. We lost our horn section. And
Oh.
so we grouped it. And then this guy knew Cannonball Adderley. He knew Claire Fisher, and he was trying to get Cannonball Adderley to come play. He had Dizzy come play with us. This is how we met Dizzy. But we met Claire Fisher. And so when we met Claire Fisher, the wonderful pianist, I don't know if the audience here knows who he is, the pianist, go check out the Prince album that Claire arranged. I think it's Cherry Moon, I think it's the name of that album, where Prince just said, "Claire, you can do whatever you want."
Oh, wow.
That's how great Claire Fisher is. Wonderful. He's a wonderful arranger, but he's a wonderful pianist, and he's a big Latin piano player and composer. So Latin jazz, and when he was going to come play, he sent all the charts to the music he wanted to play for this concert. And, he's a piano player. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just sit on the side and, just kind of watch the show. And at the first rehearsal, he's looking at me and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, Claire, I'm just listening to you. And the trumpet player, I remember, he said, Claire says, I'm not conducting. I'm going to play piano. You're going to conduct the scores. And that guy, the other piano player, he's going to play with me. I wrote double keyboard parts. So these were very challenging parts, by the way, Dina.
Wow.
Claire, I read an interview where Herbie Hancock would study Claire's stuff. That's how heavy duty Claire is.
Well, I'm really glad that this. No, I love learning this stuff. This is wonderful. I'm definitely going to have to look up.
Yeah,
Claire
you should
Fisher.
check. And I can give you some albums to listen to. Very, really famous conga players play. A lot of people play with them, but there's a gentleman who has a band now. I just can't think of his name. That was in Claire's band, and he's got his own band now in the Latin jazz scene. But anyway, so that's what happened. I just got sunk into that stuff. So this got me to Tribu. When I was here in the Bay Area, I never really had my own Latin jazz band. I met a wonderful vibes player and saxophonist that were from the U.S. that also knew Cuban music, Afro-Cuban stuff, wonderful players. And the sax player knew a bass player from Cuba, and they knew the rest of musicians in the Cuban community. So they got a drummer and a conga player and then us, and we made a 6-piece band. And that's how Tribu came about.
Very cool. Well, I don't have any Tribu to play for everyone, but I do have you gave me a little. We had this conversation just to let everyone know about what you're doing now versus what had been doing, and you came up with this wonderful sort of compromise of you playing a bossa nova. With the 2600. Yeah. So I'm just going to show a little bit of it now, and I'll show the whole thing at the end, but I just want to play a little bit of that. Hold on, everyone. Okay. So we'll be listening to the whole thing at the end. I wanted to make sure that everyone could see a little bit of the imagery as well, because we're going to kind of go right into that. But yeah, I love bossa nova. There's something about it. It's relaxing and energizing at the same time. It's really interesting, that particular beat, but I find it balancing, I guess. So.
Yeah, it was a piece I wrote a while back, and it was kind of dedication for Lyle Mays after his passing. A friend of mine asked me if I could submit something for it, so I was kind of looking for that sound and kind of the synth sounds it used, and I remembered I had used the 2600 to do some soloing and play the second lead on it.
Nice.
Thanks.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about the imagery. If you all, anyone who missed the beginning, you do some really interesting imagery, and so there's a little bit of that now. So let's talk about the transition from the Latin bands and the more, let's say, traditional composing into the composing and music that you're doing now.
Yeah, so that was kind of one of those life changes. Kind of happened in 2018. I mean, I've been all these years still playing synthesizers, but 2018 I had a nerve issue happen with my right hand where my fifth fingers just stopped working, and the doctors were like, "You'll have to stop playing the piano." That was kind of that, so, it was like, "You need to stop." And yeah, that was kind of interesting. I mean, I could still compose and arrange, but I was kind of sitting at home going, well, what do I do now? And a friend of mine called me up. I hope he's on the show today, Steve. He said,
I think
hey,
he's here.
why aren't you playing your synthesizers? You have time for doing that now because you don't have your bands, and now you can just play. And it was a great idea. I just said, yeah, I could actually do that. And I got back, reset up my modulars. Got to 2600, and just I said, yeah, I could do that. And one of the life things I've always wanted to do is mix music with visual art. And outside of film composing, because I also do some work orchestrating, writing orchestration cues for film composers and TV composers stuff. But I didn't really want to get into that main line of work doing that. But I wanted to can I just do audio with visuals and stuff? And so that had been really prevalent in the electronic music community. I was really seeing that. I go to shows and I could see that. I go, yeah, that's what I want to do. And then I figured what I'd like to do, because I like to improvise, what if I could play my modulars and play the visuals at the same time? And so that's what happened. So these last 3 years, that the piece you saw at the beginning is just improvised, where I put together visuals and improvise either to it or have the visual try to connect to me. We connect what's called a beat sync or just random generation and just perform it live. And that's what I've been doing, just having the greatest time. Because that whole world is brand new to me, and it's just a whole lot of updates that have happened.
Yeah. And the newness, I think, that can really be so fertile for imagination. When
Yeah, it
something is
is.
new.
It's fantastic. So now I'm working on a lot of 2D, 3D things. I just made an entity, a 3D entity that I'm working on for some shows coming up. That I'm trying to take this 3D entity I made and try to work sound around it and stuff.
Uh-oh.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I can't wait to see that. Oh, wow. So I want to play. You prepared a piece for us, which I'd like to play. I've always been of the mindset is experience music or art first, and then learn more about it later. Sometimes, I mean, because you can never have that fertile mind yet. So I'm going to play it without you talking a little bit more, and then let's definitely get into some of the technical aspects of it because it's
Sure.
fascinating to me. All right, does this have a name?
Not really, not yet. It was something I put together for a performance earlier this year in Austin. I was invited to be part of this virtual exposition where there was a lot of visual artists, and the promoter was excited to have me because I was a synthesist doing this with visuals,
Yeah.
and he also was into synthesizers, so it was like a perfect marriage kind of thing. And he said, "Oh, come, do this piece with your modular synth and we'll talk more about the technique, but the visual thing that you're seeing going on, and your 2600s in there too."
Wow. All right, everyone, hold on to your hats. Let's check this out. Come on. Oh, of course, it's not. There we go. Wow. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like I went on a journey with this piece.
Yeah,
There's conflict and resolution in a way.
yeah, that's all those composing teachers. I try to always write in a journey kind of thinking. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. So the electronic music, I try to work in these four areas of ambient drone, noise, and beat, and try to work a form around all that all the time. So thank you for that thing, because I always wonder if that's working or not. But yeah, so that piece is interesting because today, and again, including the 2600 being semi-modular, these voltages coming out of here are matching the Eurorack modulars and my hardware video synthesizers I use. I use these two modules that are actual video synthesizers, and they can accept audio and LFO signaling, CV, control voltage.
Yep.
So that piece was done with a technique called video feedback, where I actually did use, I also use Max, MSP. And inside Max, there's two video programs called Visual and Jitter. I'm actually learning Jitter right now from a professor in Paris. But Visual, I learned from this guy named Pulse Colder. He's actually in Austin too. And what the technique is, one video is running and overlaying, and you can probably see this overlay of me getting modulated in all weird ways. And Max MSP is, I have a handheld camera moving around while I'm playing the synthesizers. Yeah. And that image is getting modulated again by the video synthesizers, and the regular synthesizers sending LFO modulations.
So you're
through
pointing
it
over
while, yeah, while I'm playing. Yeah, oh, sorry.
No,
while I'm playing,
no.
right?
I want to see what's over there.
Oh. Well, there's the rest of my studio.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. Show us your gear. Whoops, no, they don't want to see me.
Yeah.
There we go.
Let me walk over. Just hold this. I can explain, because then the piece will make more sense.
It'll make more sense, yeah.
All right, here we go. So I got some stuff set up over here. I don't know how much you can see. Can you see that okay?
I could see lots and lots and lots and lots of okay things, yes.
Yeah, so here's these are my video module synthesizers. And I can perform these live. But one of the things they do, also they'll accept CV from LFOs or audio from other modules. And what's great about the 2600, since it's semi-modular, you can patch it. You can take waveforms from the 2600. So on that piece, I had the 2600 send LFOs to these modules and just do things. Isn't that awesome?
It's really
While
awesome.
I'm doing things. So it's like you're talking with the machine, you know? You and the machine are doing things. And what's fun about that, it's all improvisation. I don't really know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's just random stuff's going to, I don't really know. I mean, you know your basic foundation, but you don't know what it's going to turn out to be. So it's going to be interesting. And in that piece, the handheld camera is also getting manipulated by Max MSP in modulations too. So I was able to move it around while the overlay video was running at the same time, coming through these pieces.
All right, so that I was going to ask, where do you see the imagery? So it's very small.
Yeah, so this one is a little small monitor, and then let me turn. I have this one doesn't have a monitor. It's called a Hypno, but I have this little battery operated monitor. There you go. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh my goodness.
Can you see that, Dina?
I certainly can, yeah. It's dizzying.
Yeah, I can see that. See it changing?
Yep.
So I can send LFOs to do that. I don't need to do it with my hand. I can actually send LFOs to do that.
Wow.
And that's all. So that whole video you saw is in real time. There's no editing. It's all real time, as if you were at a live show. So everything you saw today, that's all real time. So that's what I do. I just play all that in real time, improvised. So now when I go to shows, I can just do my own audio and visual same time in real time. It's kind of it's hard to wrap your head around it because it's like, hey, this guy's doing visuals and he's doing audio and synths at the same time. I don't get it.
And it's all spontaneous. Is there
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just wondering if this was like a live show rather than a stream, would there be a way to project it so someone could see?
Yeah, absolutely, because there's all these outputs on here, and you can just output them to projectors or whatever.
Right.
They're just regular video composites out. Excuse me, they're just regular video composites out. So you can stick them in with projectors.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So it's been a fascinating world. And then I'm learning some software-based ones that you have to run on a laptop. That's some stuff coming up. But I really like these hardware ones because they remind me of just playing regular synth modules. And so they were easy to incorporate in as far as the process from the modulars. You know, it's like you're just doing the same thing here as you do on audio, but you're just using visuals. Yeah.
So the hardware is also analog because it's really.
Yes.
Yes, it's not digital. It's the software version would be digital, but this is analog because it's being
sort of. Yeah. So, but these modules are digital at the same time. They're kind of half-half. They're hybrids. There is digital. There is microprocessors in here, but because there is still an analog component, that's why you can do all the real-time stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's your hybrid world, right? Just like these, right? Remember these? The hybrid thing is still around. So even though some of our modules, even though we can go back and we can patch them, they're analog, there's still some digital stuff going on in there. That's fine. That's cool. But it's the fact that you can play real-time performance, that's beautiful.
So just so I can try to make it analogous, we can to my analog brain. Are there certain ways to create specific shapes? Like, you would create pink noise on a 2600. You could create a certain effect consistently that would be analogous to pink noise or a sine wave or a sawtooth wave.
In fact, the other night let me go back here. I'll use this background. The other night, I created a visual that's is just what you said. If the frequency is at 10,000 hertz, it's going to kick off some color pattern or movement at that point. If the frequency is at 5,000, it's going to kick something else off.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Right? And think of it then is like a filter, right? Or a notch filter or whatever. Right? So it's the same. It's weird how the video world and our audio world is so parallel. Those same concepts happen. So I realized this when I went to when the person invited me to the exposition, because he knew the modular synth world and he knew we understood frequencies that went right over to the video world. So he's like, you could send a sound at 5,000, like you could send that pink noise, and that we can program an image or something to move at that frequency. As soon as it crosses that, yeah. So I'm working on a piece right now. I'm working on this thing where you'll see me, and depending on the frequency coming from the modular synth, it's going to illuminate either my head or my hand. That movement happens at a frequency.
This is great. This is really, really, really neat stuff. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's really cool for us synthesists, right? Because we have all the frequencies, so we can do whatever we want because we can move through that frequency range really wonderfully, and we have our LFOs. I didn't realize how cool LFOs were, except for the last 2 years using them. I remember, we used to think of them for the mod wheel and all that stuff, but as I got more into this and coming back to modular, it was really exciting, the stuff we as synthesists can do to really manipulate the visual world, because they're working with those same concepts.
It's really, really, it opens up so many possibilities. So many possibilities. Do you know Marie and Hudia?
Yeah, we did a show.
You did a show.
We did a
that's
show.
right. You did a
Yeah, earlier this year.
Yeah. So she's doing some similar stuff. Modular Marie. Yeah. This is a realm I'm very excited.
That other side.
Yeah. So, I'd love to open up to some questions. We have some people here, and I think there is a Steve Tormina. Is that the person you were?
That's the guy I was talking about. Steve.
He's cheering you on. And we have Peter Churchard from Maryland and Nick Carlisle from UK.
Oh my God.
Yep. Adrian Heredia from LA. So we gotta, and lots of people lurking in the background.
Hey everybody.
So thanks everyone.
Yeah.
So we'd love to open up questions to the audience. So anyone who is either have been greeting us or is lurking, please give us some questions because there's a lot of interesting new material here. Bill Miller. Bill, hey Bill. So Bill does some great visual stuff as well. So he says, cool studio rig, solid sonics and visuals in the last vid. Dig that you started out on Odyssey in 2600 like myself, and really dig your smiling vibe.
Thanks, Bill.
Did I hear something about Jimi Hendrix? Yes, you did. You played with Bill Rich, is that it?
Yeah, Bill Rich, the famous Bill Rich. So this guy's incredible. So here's the story, and I love this. I was in a band with this gentleman. He's a bass player, family of musicians. Sister was a great singer. His brother was a great sax organ player. And Bill, I was in a band with him. I knew none of his past. I knew nothing about him. And one day the leader said, "Hey, Bill, I re-listened to that Buddy Miles album that you were on." And I go, "Buddy Miles?" And Bill goes, "Oh, yeah, I had this gig for a while with Buddy Miles." And I go, "Buddy Miles?" and then if this is so funny. I'm reading this biography. The guy he doesn't say anything. I'm reading this biography of Jimi Hendrix. And there's a chapter where Jimi Hendrix comes to Denver, Colorado, comes to this backyard house party, and Bill is there playing, and him and Jimmy hook up, and they're playing. Him and Jimi Hendrix are playing together. And this is in a book. I didn't even hear this from Bill. This was in a book. And I go, "Bill, what's this now with Jimmy?" So I've gone out and bought the Buddy Miles albums that he's on. He's on 3 or 4 of these, but he played with Buddy Miles. Buddy Miles and Hendrix, Bill was supposed to be in the band of Gypsies. And the reason Jimmy had to use Billy Cox is because Jimmy couldn't get a hold of Bill. rich. Bill was in California somewhere, unreachable. Otherwise, he would have been in the band of Gypsies. And if you know Bill, he is so mellow. He's spent the last 40 years being Taj Mahal's bassist and playing, and he's also on the very first. And you got to go hear this album, and the story behind the album is just unbelievable. Bill is on the very first John McLaughlin album, and didn't even know who John McLaughlin was. Buddy Miles told him, this guy needs a bassist. They went down. Bill's playing. He has no background on John McLaughlin at all. He didn't know who he was. So I'm here at the gig. Yeah, I'm here at the gig with Bill. So that's the Jimi Hendrix connection. My buddy Bill. I'll send you a track. We recently did a tune together. I wrote a tune especially for him to come play. A wonderful drummer from Chicago, a great blues guitarist from Boulder, Colorado, Jack Hadley. We did a 4-piece tune. I did a half blues, half jazz tune. But Bill was the bassist on it. And I'll send you that track. It's a great, they did a really nice job.
Definitely, and I'll be sure to share.
Yeah, so if you read the Jimi Hendrix biography and you run into this section on Bill Rich, that's who he is. Wonderful bass player. He's like I said, he's on 3 or 4. He was Buddy Miles' main bassist. If you go out and see a Taj Mahal show, he's probably Bill playing. Go up and say hi to him. He's a very nice man. And I knew none of this. Even playing with him, that's how reserved and nice he is. He says nothing about himself at all.
So, Adrian wants to know, do you use any effects or pedals?
Yeah. So I use a lot of effects on that thing, on the Mini Mode Voyager. I use a lot of that, and the Cloud Terror. The Odyssey, I actually used to use. I used to use fuzz and space echo stuff on it, digital delays, and I have crossed that over to the 2600. In my Eurorack today, all that's built. There's modules for all that now. So to answer your question, yes, not particularly a pedal per se, but if it's in the models, I can just cross patch in. So dual delays. I got a really strange module from Denmark. It's a module. They built a tape delay unit into the module, and it's from Denmark. I wish I could pull it out. It's the bizarrest thing. It's a module, but they actually put a space echo on a module. It's the craziest thing. I can't remember what the name of this thing is. It's on my IG page. I took a picture one time, put it on there, because it is the most. If you know HP and Eurorack, it's like 42 HP. It's crazy big. Wow. But this thing it's the original. Yeah, it's a space echo. Is really what it is. And these guys in Denmark built it. So yeah, I still use digital delay units, wah-wah fuzzes. I still like to use that stuff for signal processing. And now that a lot of that's got built into modules, and it's funny, a lot of the module builders were pedal builders before. I have a chorus module that was actually the guy used to build chorus pedals. So that world's kind of integrated in.
Nick Carlisle, is an interesting question, actually. So it's sort of related to the video synthesis. By any chance, do you have synesthesia, or have you associated sound? Have you always associated sound with color or the visual in any way?
Interesting. Yes and no. Sometimes, again, I use a lot of random stuff. In fact, the video that was in the promo is black and white with that, which was a bookless synthesizer I was using, the 208C. And that was interesting because it was just black and white movement. I have another video that does that. it's more the shape of the sound, maybe connecting to the video. But upcoming projects, what Dina and I was just talking about, having frequency initiate the color code. I'm working on a video right now for that, because that's a bench. I've actually learned how to do it. So that's why I'm going to try. I didn't really know how to do that before, but now I've learned how to do it. So I'm very curious. I'm starting to build some images that are triggered by the frequencies of color. Right. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, in a future project. These right now, no, are more just random generations where I just improvise and not really looking to sync the image to the music. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Or there is a method to beat sync, which is used a lot in EDM world. But I kind of use a little of that, but I'm looking more for random stuff a lot of the time.
So you're not looking for a specific color.
Not yeah, but
Synesthesia, people that have, and I'm probably getting the definition not quite right, but you feel color. People
yeah, the pieces coming up, I am gonna route that way because I figured out how to send frequencies to those. Again, 10,000 hertz, maybe that's blue. 5,000, maybe that's the red. Things like that. Yeah.
Oh, here's another question from Adrian. How do you like using the Odyssey?
I love the Odyssey. The Odyssey, I was my main synth for a long time. I know maybe people who did not do synthesis back it started at the beginning. One thing that's different than today, we only had the ARP and Moog in pop, jazz, and rock, and classical. Let's not forget Wendy Carlos. So if you didn't have an ARP, you probably had a Moog, or you had both, and that was all you had. And they didn't really connect until the Tonto system came. Malcolm and them, right? Where they took the ARP, the Moog, and the Oberheim and connected it all together. But so if you had your one synth, you did everything with that one synth. I mean, the Odyssey, I had to build horn, string, bass, lead, everything on that instrument. You had to learn everything patching on that instrument. So the Odyssey, for me personally, was a great foundation builder. And it also got me to the 2600. So again, without that path, I probably wouldn't have gone into synthesis. There had been no way I would have been able to touch. The next synth after the 2600 was the Moog 3, because we had a Moog 3 at the University of Colorado, and that would have made no sense to me at all. Because your dad not having this diagram on here, the signal flow, the Moog would have made no sense to me, period. But coming from the ARP school, the ARP diagrams, the manuals, yeah, everything started making sense. So the Odyssey was just a great, groundbreaking synth, lots of power, really reliable, really reliable. I was using that for gigs all the time because you were gigging every day and you're doing studio sessions. So I mean, it worked. The Odyssey was just reliable. It was really 100% machine. It was great. So I still use it. I still love it because it does things. My album on Bandcamp, Wintress, that's an ARP Odyssey that starts at the beginning of that album. That's an ARP Odyssey.
So Wintress?
Yeah, it's called Wintress. I have 4 albums up on Bandcamp under the moniker Synsor. The Wintress album, it starts out with an ARP Odyssey patch. Actually, a patch I learned from George Duke. It's a George Duke patch.
I wanted to kind of, I'll try to find it and add it to the end of when I post this up on YouTube.
So to the gentleman's question, yeah, I still use the ARP Odyssey. Oh, the other thing about the Odyssey, there was the early ones didn't have this. There was the customized kit to the Odyssey, and I have that, where you could send audio in and had CV control on them. And the audio in was nice because you could send it to the sample and hold unit, and that was a great sound. And a lot of people would send their sound through the Odyssey and grab the sample and hold with their Fender Rhodes and their clavinet. Stevie Wonder has a really famous song. I think it's on the song Keys in Life, where he's sending one of his keyboards to the sample and the hold of the ARP, probably the 2600, and it's a great sound.
I think all of
And
that was all that done on Tonto. I'm not.
well, remember the Tonto was the marriage of the ARP Moog and the
A bunch of others.
Oberheim. Yeah, yeah. Those Malcolm and them, Robert, I think his name. Remember they electrically wired all that together. That system is in Canada now. They gave it to the University of Alberta, I think, or
Yeah.
Calgary. I can't remember. Yeah, but there's some great articles about it. But on the Odyssey, you could do that because you guys had that kit on the Odyssey now, and you could send other signals, audio signals, through the Odyssey. Wow. So I still use those things. They're still useful. Yeah.
Is there a synth that you would? I think this can be the last question because we're starting to go over. Is there a synth you would want to see reissued?
Oh,
It's always a hard.
a lot of stuff is coming back anyway.
It is.
David and brought their profits back. So one of the synths I was probably too fast. I have a Prophet 12 over here, so I still have an old 5. I still have an original 5. I just don't have it out today. I would say probably the OBXA, the OBX, man. Those, in fact, on the tune, the bossa you played, that's what those are. Doing the comping. Yeah, those are Oberheims. Those are OBXAs doing the comping.
We're actually going to play that at the end. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I heard Behringer was trying to bring it back, so it'll be interesting to see. And Tom Oberheim lives here in the Bay Area. We see him every once in a while. Every time I see him, I'm always, that's my phrase. Tom, can I get an OPX?
He's really sweet. He's really sweet. I like him a lot. All right, so we're just about out of time. I want to make a couple of first of all, I want to thank you again, and this video will be put up on YouTube within the next few days, and I'll include even more links. Definitely send me any references that you've made, so I can get them up there, because I'm sure our audience would like to go back and see some of these songs that you're referencing and things like that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And Dina, thank you so much. This is a bucket list moment. It's just,
well, I really enjoyed it, and you got great energy. We really, everyone here seems to really enjoy that as well. So I'm going to ask people to stick around for a second. I just want to make an announcement. So first announcement is save the date, September 18th of this year. We're going to have an event in Boston. It is a hybrid event, so there will be a lot of streaming involved, and especially since we have to keep an eye on the situation with our perpetual planet pandemic. We want to make sure there's options. So we're going to have a save the date event on our page. It is going to be a combination celebration of the 2600, which is this year it is the 50th birthday of the 2600, as well as a fundraiser for our ARPS for All project. So check out our events page. This is going to be updated regularly as we get more people. Lisa Belladonna, David Barron, and David Friend are all confirmed to join us virtually and or in person, depending on their situation. So that should be really great. Keep your eye out for that. And just want to remind everyone, the comment that's pinned to the top is our donate button. And I just want to add that there is no donation that is too small. every one of you, even showing up here, is to me is a great contributor to the foundation. So I want to thank you all for being here, and if you have the ability to contribute anything as little as $1 and as high as you can, we have another instrument coming to ARPS for All, which is a quadra, which is so exciting. I cannot tell you how exciting it is that we're going to be getting that. I have some very interesting guests lined up for the next few months to be on ARP Live, an interview as well. So there's some really cool stuff coming up. So again, thank you all for your support, and stick around the last 5 minutes. I really want you to see this bossa nova. Like I said, bossa novas they make you want to move and they relax you at the same time. What better combination can you have? Thank you all again, and I'll see you soon.